It's the Eddie Corns podcast where today we are talking through the top storylines heading into the 2026 AFL season with Finlay Butcher, of course. By the way, keep subscribing on YouTube. I've appreciated the support so much over the last week. Let's keep it going. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers before the end of February. We are not far off, already over halfway. Keep the ball rolling. Do the same on Spotify. Do the same on Apple. Leave a 5-star review if you enjoy the episode. I'm sure you will. Let's jump into it. The top storylines of the 2026 season coming right up. All right, Finners, we're back. Pumped to be here after the major success of our New Year's podcast just a couple weeks ago. The Eddie Corns podcast as a whole has an entirely new audience that may not be aware of who Finlay is. He is one of my great mates. And normally when he comes on the pod, we sit here, we talk shit, and we go through some of the biggest storylines in the AFL. So I thought, why not just make it a whole episode? Me and Finlay on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple, we're going through the top storylines of the 2026 AFL season. Finlay, you excited to be here?
Dawn, you've dragged me out of bed on my day off. I work 6 days a week starting at 6 o'clock
Finlay,
in the morning.
we rise, we grind on the Eddie Corns podcast. There are no excuses here.
I've worked 16 days straight.
Look,
and I'm out of bed. I love it. I wouldn't get out of bed for much else. And there's people close to me that know that. And
people
and
appreciate the hard work. No, they appreciate
That's
it.
right.
They DM me on Instagram and they say, Eddie, I just love how Finlay goes to the airport, gets his shit done, and then comes on the Eddie Corns podcast, just firing, high energy, love the work. So to all the people that DM me on Instagram, chill out. We know you love Finlay. Comment it on Spotify, comment it on YouTube. Show your support for Finlay. By the way, Finners, are you subscribed to the Eddie Corns podcast? Because we are trying to get to 500 subscribers before the end of February. We're already halfway there. Let's keep the momentum rolling.
Look at that. Subscribed.
Good stuff. All right, let's jump into the episode. I gave you the new ball last time. I'm going first this time because I've got a good one. Now, as a lot of you listening would know, I grew up inside of the Port Adelaide Football Club. And while we try to be a national show, it would be pretty unlike us not to at least mention one of the Adelaide teams on this podcast. So I've decided the number one storyline for me personally heading into the 2026 season is Port Adelaide. Here's why. They finished 13th in 2025. The teams that finished below them, Melbourne, Essendon, North, Richmond, and West Coast. I reckon all of those teams I just listed are at least going to get better. Do I expect Richmond, West Coast, and North to be playing finals this year? Absolutely not. But I don't think they're going to be as much of a train wreck as they were last season. And then the teams that finished above them that didn't make the top 8, St Kilda, Carlton, Sydney, and the Bulldogs. I've picked Sydney to win the premiership. The Bulldogs, Kane came on this podcast last week and said they're going to win the premiership. Carlton has to improve or else that team is going to get blown to smithereens and everything is going to change at Carlton. And I might get to this a little bit later, but St Kilda and Ross the Boss are under a bit of pressure to improve this year. So those 4 teams should get better in 2026. The only team out of those 9 that I just named, or I guess 10 now that I'm including Port Adelaide in the list of teams that didn't make the finals last year, the only team that isn't going to get better, at least on paper, is Port Adelaide. They didn't improve their list. They've got a brand new coach. How much can you expect him to improve in his first season? They didn't draft anyone, funnily enough. And there isn't really an off-season acquisition that you look at and you go, he's going to bring some energy and some firepower to this team. You know, Jaden Stevenson, who they were hyping up before the pre-season kicked off. 2 touches in Port Adelaide's scratch match, and they both went backwards. So I'm not expecting Jaden Stevenson to have an all-Australian type year. And to be honest with you, I've already said this on the pod, Port's going to finish bottom 4. I would be incredibly surprised if they do anything but that. And then what's the repercussions of that season for Port Adelaide? It's really interesting. Zack Butters is just floating out there as well. I think Port as a whole is my most intriguing storyline heading into 2026.
Yeah, I love it, Corn. I don't love it, actually. What am I lying
You've got
for?
the Port beanie on.
I've got a... Mate, I almost wore an Oz cricket hat, but then realised, hang on, we're in the 6 month... Not 6 months, the 3-month period where there's just nothing, and we just have to make something up for 3 months. And this year, it's making up the fact that we're going to finish bottom 4. So what I'm going to go with next, tying into that bottom 4 kind of bracket, is that the biggest storyline for me is that Richmond are going to break out of that bottom 3 rank. They're going to break out and they're going to finish in the top half of the bottom 10. I saw a little bit at the start of last year. Lawler's going to get him full year down him. We've got some lovely key backs that just look gorgeous from the draft the previous year. I think it's time for them to see a little bit of growth. They've really fast-tracked their rebuild, and I think they're going to be the first team out of the 3, West Coast, Richmond, and North Melbourne, to break out of that bottom 3 mold.
100% agree with you, particularly on that last point. So they are much better than West Coast. They're much better than North. North, I may also touch on this a little bit later as well. They don't actually get enough credit for how terrible their rebuild has gone. They've got Sheasel and not a lot else to show for it. And you look at Richmond and you compare it to North and you go, they're just on completely 2 different lanes in terms of how well their rebuild has gone. So I agree with you 100%. And maybe with wildcard round, who knows? Maybe Richmond towards the last few weeks of the season are all of a sudden competing for a spot in the wildcard round. Who knows? No one can say. My second one, coaches under pressure. This is the year of the coaches under pressure for me. There are so many you can point to and say they have to have a successful season if they want to be in the number 1 spot coaching their team in 2027. So the 4 key ones, Voss, Longmire, Scott, Bevo. That's Brad Scott. Voss, Carlton have to play finals or else he won't be coaching there next year. He doesn't have a contract extension, must win. Longmire's on this rolling contract that requires him to win every year. Freo had the incredibly disappointing exit in the finals against Gold Coast in 2025. Not only do they have to play finals, I reckon they have to win one for him to be the coach in 2027. Scott, it's a really terrible situation for him, to be honest with you. And unless Essendon somehow win a final, I find it really difficult to believe he is going to be the coach in 2027. I also think that's an incredibly unfair expectation for everything that's transpired with Essendon over the last 12 months. If they won a final, that would just be an incredible story. Is it going to happen? Probably not. And then Bevo, I think he's in the same camp as Longmire, where not only do they have to play finals, they have to win a final. Because Sam Darcy is going to be an absolute monster this year. Kicked 8 in their trial match yesterday. He's probably going to win the Coleman. They've got Bont still absolutely killing it. All the other talent, Richards, just keep going down the list. The Dogs have so much talent. I hear the defensive stuff. Look, I think defensively in the AFL, while you do need talent, and it is really important for you to win a premiership, you need to have one great key defender. But I think you can win a final without a standout guy. I think Port Adelaide proved that. Like prior to Aaliyah, when they were winning finals under Hinkley, they didn't really have one super incredible defender. Dan Houston isn't a lockdown key defender guy. And they were still winning finals. So I think you can expect the Dogs to win a final and that not being an unfair expectation for them in 2026. But there are also 2 wild cards. So there's Ross, who I briefly mentioned prior to getting to this point. St Kilda need to improve with how much money they've spent. They're all in on this season and the next. Ross is under a bit of pressure to play finals this year. And then Matthew Nicks is the last one. The Crows finish first. Not only do they have to win a final, I think they have to be in a prelim type situation for Matthew Nicks to come back in 2027. This is do or die for the Crows this year. They are all in with the talent they have. Their premiership window is wide open. Port Adelaide learnt this the hard way. When the window is open, you have to take full advantage. And the pressure's on Matthew Nicks to do that this year. So for me, coaches under the most pressure: Voss, Longmire, Scott, Bevo, Ross, and Nicks. Any thoughts on that?
Mate, that's good. I think it ties nice into my next one, and I'll ask you a few questions before we dive in because we're absolutely flying here.
We are flying.
With the whole considering a finals win, this ties into my next one, which is based on the wildcard round. With that, does that put any confusion over that term finals win?
So I don't want to spoil a podcast I'm doing next week, but I think what we're going to see over the course of the season is Andrew Dillon walking back the language he used about wildcard round when it was first announced, because it's not a final. So I think that is the thing people are really stuck up on, where all of a sudden this is now an extra finals game. It's not a final. The NBA did it at best, where it's just a completely separate thing. It's on its own. It is just, the play-in tournament. That's all it is in the NBA. I think wildcard round has to be considered something just completely outside of the home and away season and the final series. It's not a final. Winning a wildcard round does not mean that Bevo should come back next year, or Longmire should come back, or Longmire should come back next year. It's just something completely separate to that. So I think Andrew Dillon is going to walk that back over the course of the season. And if you tune in on Tuesday to the Eddie Corns podcast, I'll go a little bit more in depth on this.
Yeah, all right. We'll go into my next one then. Is success or failure? If a team who finished the regular season in 9th or 10th go on to make it any further than a prelim, do you consider the wildcard round a success or a failure?
In my eyes,
that is the story.
It doesn't actually. The wildcard round is not put in with the expectation that the team who finishes 9th is going to go ahead and play the grand final. The whole point of the wildcard round, and I think Kingy spoke about this, and I actually disagree with what Kingy says. I'm a fan of the wildcard weekend. I think it's going to work. I think when we get to that bye week and there's an extra round of footy, a really good game that matters, people will realise all the bullshit they've been spewing for the past few months is just pointless. Like, it's an extra game of footy. What are we complaining about? It's a meaningful game. And if the team gets eliminated the next round, you know what? It is what it is. It doesn't mean the wildcard round's still a failure. So I don't actually think the position the wildcard team ends up finishing in the finals matters to whether the wildcard round is a success or a failure. Do you think it's a good thing, the wildcard round?
Well, I like how you say it's an extra game of footy, because I've always been big on that. I just want more football. Obviously the players want less, but I want more because I'm a bit greedy. But then also, was there a problem with the top 8 system?
No, but why are we not trying to improve our product? Like, if it's already good, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I get that. But all the best sports in the world continue to innovate. They create new things. They, expand on the ideas. Footy is a sport that is old. It was created, over 100 years ago. Like, things have changed. We want more content. There's a week that is empty for the AFL to absolutely dominate. Put a great game in there. We saw this year. How good would the wildcard game have been if it was in for the 2025 season? And the argument that whoever wins the wildcard game is just going to get smashed next year. If what we see is a pretty similar season to last, that's just not true. The competition was so close. And I think with the way that the AFL is now set up for equalisation, and while there's many problems with that, it does lead to at least the top 10 or 11 teams in the AFL being reasonably close to each other. And that's going to create great games and great spectacles during wildcard weekend. So People just need to get over themselves. Tradition, whatever, I get it. Maybe it's just because I'm younger. The wildcard game's an extra game of meaningful football. What are we complaining about?
I don't like that you're younger, mate. You're pushing 20. That's old.
Well, who's closer
Mate,
to
that's
20, me or
old.
you?
You,
When's your
you.
birthday?
January, mate. So you're a little bit
Oh,
closer. Couple months, mate.
still.
But I like what you're saying with the whole fact that with the equalization model, and we saw last year that the teams have been closer than they had ever been before. If that continues to go, it could almost expand to a point where the teams are honestly from 14 up are going to be that close together. And that's what you want. Like that
Well,
makes
exactly,
good
like,
football every week.
the equalization model's actually worked, but not in the way the AFL thought it was going to work. The equalization model thought it would be better for the teams much lower on the ladder and make it easier for them to move up the ladder. What it's actually done is made it easier for the teams towards the top of the ladder to sustain their success. So, like, the top 10 teams in the AFL are able to just continue to build on what they've already got with their team, while the guys at the bottom are having to deal with compromised drafts and their failures aren't as actually meaningful as what they could have been a few years prior before, all the academy stuff and the NGA. So it's an interesting situation, and it's actually a big issue for Andrew Dillon, because I look at someone like West Coast and I go, Tassie's not too far away. They are still so far off the mark. How do these guys get better? And imagine if they lost Harley Reid, because that's going to happen to one of these teams. One of these teams is going to have a player that is really meaningful, somewhat similar to what happened in North Melbourne with Horn Francis. And their best player is just going to say, why would I stay here with a team that's going to suck for at least another 5 seasons of my career? Well, I'm looking around at my contemporaries who are just as good as me, and they're on Collingwood and they're on Geelong and they're constantly competing every single year. Why would I stay? So it's a fascinating situation, and I actually don't know what the fix is. I've always been a fan of get rid of the father son, get rid of NGAs, get rid of academy. I know there's so many issues that come with that, but just make the draft as even as possible. It's easier said than done, because I'd have to basically revamp every single thing the AFL have done over the last 15 years. But yeah, it's interesting.
Well, that's the thing, because they're pushing this equalization, but then they're not kind of doing anything about this NGA and father-son, these prospects. Like, they're pushing this equalization, but then Gold Coast are getting 4 players that would have gone inside the top 10 for free.
And Brisbane get 3 great fucking players. So they just won the premiership in back-to-back seasons. It just doesn't make any sense. So it goes back to the fact that it's helping the top 10 teams more than it's helping, the rest of the bottom dwellers, and it's an awkward situation.
Now, I will say, my fans have been robbed of a Finlay Butcher episode here. The humour book's gone away, and the serious book's come out for this episode. Far out. I was gone, laughed in 20 minutes there.
Well, look, we were flying along there. We gotten through 3 storylines in 10 minutes, so I had to just take us down a little rabbit hole.
Handbrake on.
Exactly. Slow us down a little bit, but we're back now, so you can go ahead and take. Is it your turn?
I think I did the wild card one.
Okay.
I'll go again, because I'll let you finish, because you always spend hours doing nothing and preparing. So my final storyline is I'm going back to Adelaide, but I think it's a pretty nationwide story.
Mm-hmm.
It's one player. You can guess, the viewers can guess, the best number 9, not just the best number 9, who ranked number 5 on the number 9 list, as we spoke about in the other episode, which is Abomination, but one of the best players in the competition. Will the ruckus and noise that is going to be coming through Zack Butters' mind and phone and through the football club and through every football club in Melbourne affect Zack Butters' performance this year? I don't think it will. I am strong on the fact I think it's probably going to make him better. And even if he plays half as good as what he plays, you still got a pretty good footballer. But I'm big on the fact that this bloke, just following him through the year, is going to be the biggest storyline. Every move he makes, every human being he speaks to off and on of the football ground, there is going to be stuff written about it. This is one of the biggest trade stories in the history of the AFL. I'm so excited to see how it plays out. What are your thoughts, Corn?
It's an interesting point you bring up. Does it improve his performance or does it make it worse? And typically, I would almost always default to the answer he's going to have a down season because of the pressure and the noise and everything that comes with heading into an impending restricted free agency, being such a big player. But then again, we just saw Nasai Wanganeen-Miller have his best season ever and have some all-time performances that rival anything we've ever seen on a footy field. So there is now an example. There is now precedent for a player who is heading into a free agency-esque situation to play incredible AFL football. And maybe that'll be Zack Butters. Port Adelaide is really built towards his game style this year. They've brought Stuart Dew in. They're going to dominate at stoppage and clearance. It's if there's any path to Port Adelaide somehow playing finals this year, it is through their midfield, and it is through staying healthy all year, the big three dominating, and them just winning every single midfield battle week after week after week after week. And Butters is going to be the driving force of that. So I think he's going to have a good year. I don't know if it's going to be his best ever. And then when you get to the free agency, my opinion is he's gone. I think it's over. I think it's a wrap. I think we're done. I think by the time we get to this time next year and we're on this podcast, we're going to be having a therapy session about Zack Butters leaving and what he's going to look like on Hawthorn or the Bulldogs or Geelong, wherever he ends up going. In my opinion, it is a wrap. But saying that, I think he's still going to have a great year. I don't think there's going to be any sort of situation where he doesn't give 100% effort because that's not who Zack Butters is. We just saw the video of him screaming at the match sim umpires. This is not a new thing. There's been stories coming out of Alberton of him and Ken Hinkley getting into fights because Ken's apparently put him on the bad team and the match sims to fire him up. It's very Michael Jordan-esque. Not saying Zack Butters is going to be the greatest player ever, but that competitive instinct is just there within him. So I think he's going to have a good year. Not sure it's going to be his career best season, but it's a good storyline that we're all going to have to monitor.
What happens, and I know it won't happen, but we're in the world of anything can happen these days. What happens if Port Adelaide in July, similar to what St Kilda did, they did it a bit later, but they released this video just out of nowhere of all the lads in the change rooms. And Rosie gets up and he says, lads, I think Zach's got something to say. And Zack just goes, yeah, I've signed on, boys. What? Oh, I think I'll cry. Like, I think I could cry.
We'll all be incredibly happy and grateful he's decided to stay. But look, if I had to make odds for it,
it's low.
It's like probably a 30% chance right now. I think it's 70-30 he leaves or stays. And yeah, it'll be a depressing day if it happens. It'll be a great day if he comes back. I didn't think Naz was going to stay. I thought that was over.
Exactly.
With how long he let that drag out, and yet he stayed. So who knows? Like you said, anything can happen. But we'll have to wait and see. The one thing I will say, though, my third storyline actually plays a little bit into Zack Butters. One of the teams he could end up going to is Hawthorn. And the reason for this is they need a star midfielder to help out probably their weakest point of their entire team, which is their midfield dominance. However, Will Day is my third biggest storyline of the season. This guy cannot stay healthy. It is starting to get into the territory of wondering what could have been. That's where we're kind of getting to with Will Day. And you wonder, is this ever actually going to happen? How many games is this guy going to play this season, do you reckon?
Less than half, you'd think.
I reckon if he plays 10 during the home and away season, and then he plays the entire final series, the Hawks can win the premiership. If he plays any less than 10 in the home and away season and then doesn't play finals, the Hawks can't win it. And I think this season not only will be incredibly big for Will Day, that'll obviously be the case. It'll be very big for the Hawks, obviously. but it's also going to be big for how hard they go after Zack Butters. Because if Will Day has yet another season where he plays 7 games, isn't healthy for the finals, I think the Hawks will have to look around and they'll go, we wish it would happen. We really, really do, but we need to look at other options. And honestly, I think if you're Port Adelaide, you are hoping and you are praying that Will Day plays almost every game this season, because if he doesn't, I think the Hawks will go so hard after Zack Butters. And I think he actually ends up there. So my storyline is Will Day and everything that comes with it. If he's healthy, the Hawks can win the premiership. If he's not, they can't, which is obviously a big storyline. But then how that plays into the whole Zack Butters sweepstakes and the rest of the teams that will end up going after Zack Butters.
Just the thought of Zack Butters in a Hawthorn Guernsey after the whole aeroplane gate actually makes me it actually makes me feel a little bit sick.
Well, you know that I love the Hawks. So
Yeah, I
if there was
do.
any team that it would end up happening with, I would like it to be the Hawks. If it was the Bulldogs, I would feel how you're describing now.
Look, it's just I think I can't see him in any other Guernsey. It just hurts. It just hurts. Cool.
We've lost Finlay. He's crying. Do you want to make the announcement of what's coming for us on Friday nights this year?
Yeah, well, I think you should make it because I've forgotten what it's called. So what you're gonna do is pretend to be me.
All right. Well, basically, me and Finlay are going to be doing a pod every single week during the footy season. And the podcast is going to be on this feed, but the show is going to be called No Review Required. And basically, after every single Friday night game, me and Finlay will be recording an episode. And hopefully, as the season progresses, going live. We want the fans to play a role in the show, to get involved, to send us questions, hot takes, whatever. And then eventually start calling into the show. Once we feel like we've established it enough, it's going to be awesome. So every Friday night, me and Finlay first podding and then going live on YouTube and on Twitter. No review required, coming to you from round 0 of this year's footy season.
And hopefully we're gonna have some studio episodes as well in there.
Maybe, hopefully. Maybe a few guests will pop in. Who knows what happens? It's going to be awesome. I cannot wait. I did find out though, we've got some stiff competition.
Who's piped up? Who's trying to take me off my throne? They can try, but it's not gonna happen.
There's going to be some corn v corn action on Friday nights.
Oh mate, that's fine. That's fine.
I actually don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I think we're going to do it because this is just what the Eddie Corn Show does. We break stories, we break the rules, we don't care. We're our own entity. This is what the fastest growing podcast on the whole planet does. I think Kane's going to be going live on afl.com.au every Friday night. So
he's been doing that for years, mate.
No, it used to be on Sundays. Now it's Fridays.
Oh, whatever.
So
I had around so far.
The AFL better watch themselves, all right? Because we're coming for their audience.
Yeah, and guess what, gang? We're going to see Finlay Butcher, who's going to be appearing at the Port Adelaide Crows match sim on February 14th. He will be there live reporting back to the podcast.
Go get some autographs.
I'll try and get some lads on the pod. Who was it I spoke to? Skull. Yeah, I spoke to Skull.
Skull.
That was good.
Who else could we need to get Koshy back on? That's definitely going to happen at some point.
Yeah, we got to get back into the club. I think we got to get in there.
It's been a bit of a rocky period for Cornses and Port Adelaide. Yeah. Chad got fired.
And then, because last time I went in, I vividly remember somehow walking out with a pair of Jason on Francis match-worn shorts, which was weird. Okay, man.
So look, we'll see what happens. Maybe Alberton's a possibility. I did grow up there, so you'd think they let me back in, surely.
Oh no, you wouldn't, mate. They let Gorringe in before you.
Oh, yeah, that was ridiculous, honestly. Letting Gorringe in. What happened to the club I once loved? I mean, this guy has criticised us time and time again. He's been I don't know. It's a joke. All right, we need to wrap this up. We've gone too long. Finlay, appreciate you coming on. Enjoy your day off. Go back to bed. Have some sleep. You back to work
No,
tomorrow?
I've got work at 11, mate. It's not a day off.
You
It's
said it was
just
your day
sleeping.
off.
Yeah,
You said it was your
This
day
is my
off.
day off. A
Ah,
sleep-in is a day off for me, Corn. Same as
all right.
you press me in the footy season. I'm working every day. I don't have any time to do anything. I can't play any golf. I can't play any darts. I can't play any Fortnite. I'm working. We all fucking work, mate. Get the bleeper
I'm
out.
I'm married to the grind, Finlay. That's the
Married
reality.
to the
You know?
game.
It is what it is. Finlay, you can catch him at work, at the airport, Adelaide Airport. If you're heading in, chuck our podcast on, download it for the plane, and you'll see
And
Finlay
show me.
pushing around a few grandpas and grandmas.
Nah, checking in now. Checking in.
Checking
Grinds up.
in. Oh, look at
Grinds
that.
up.
The promotion
Grinds
is
up.
here. We love it. This is what the Eddie Corns podcast does for people. We elevate, we improve, we get
Yeah,
better,
that's it.
and we just get
Elevate your
started in
hearing aids.
2026.
Elevate your hearing aids. Sorry.
Appreciate you listening. See you on Tuesday. We'll be back.